How you doing? Hello everybody and welcome back to the Educated Colin Snap channel. We're going to be doing our September Spotlight tier list today. There's a lot of really good cards in this one, so I do think for most players there's going to be a decent amount of options to choose for this month, which is usually not the case. So hopefully you guys enjoy and let's begin. All right, September is a super interesting season. I would arguably say one of the best seasons in terms of spotlight variability that we have. Do think there's a lot of options to go through, but first off, let's look at the rating system. Hasn't really changed month to month, but just a big overview, right? We have S tier to D tier. S tier is generally like these are very good spotlights. Everyone should be interested if you fit that category. You don't have to get them, but they are very strong. I haven't had an S tier so far. Maybe that'll change with this month. A tier, still very, very good. You should consider getting this. And then B tier is still a solid option, but maybe not as good. You're really going to have to want one of the cards that are available for you to stick with a B tier. And then anything C and down, I really don't recommend. There's usually better spotlights to go for. So you're really just looking through the S to B. But then as well, variants I'm not really accounting for at all in these tier lists. So if you really, really like a variant, but it's in a lower tier, I have no value for variants. So that can be something that pushes you to get something that is in a C or D tier. Usually those are just variant tiers essentially. So just keep that in mind. But with that out of the way, let's get into the first week. So this is this current week with Jeff. I do think Jeff is an amazing card and a card you really want in your collection. 6,000 tokens, really good. Another thing I have here is the total tokens at the top somewhere. So here Jeff is a series 5, Ghost Spider is a series 5, and then Null is a series 4. So that's going to equal 15,000 tokens. So that's just general knowledge that I believe some people were asking for, but before I didn't have the information to do it for every spotlight, but I do for this month, so here you go. But generally, Jeff is a great card. If you can get Jeff, I would definitely go for it if you don't have it. So if you're missing all three, then there's not really a downside to going for this spotlight. You're going to get a new card either way. The cards are fairly expensive, Ghost Spider being pretty good or pretty expensive. I don't know if it's good. It's good in move decks, but there aren't too many people playing Ghost Spider, even though I would say it's a playable card. Still just isn't seeing play in the meta. And Null is just a staple in Destroy. If you're playing Destroy, Null is really core to get. So generally a good, even though Null's been in the rotation, in the spotlights multiple times, still, if you missed it, like feel free to get it. Now, if you're missing only two, right? If you're missing just Jeff and Ghost Spider, still think it's a great tier. Still something to get. If you're missing Jeff and Null, still think it's a great tier, something to very much consider. I just think Jeff is a super important card to have in your collection. Always pops up, always in meta decks, and just has a good play. So even if you're missing only Jeff, that's still worth a consideration, right? We've moved that down to B, but still worth a consideration just because Jeff is so important. So Jeff is pretty much carrying this whole tier. If Jeff wasn't in there, you can see it's C and D tier. So if you're missing the other two, like I wouldn't get it. I would say, hey, like we'll find another time to get Ghost Spider and Null. This isn't the place for it with spotlights. But if you are missing Jeff, definitely my generic take is yes, get it. It's still really important. Now moving on to next week, we have Alioth. A lot of people have been mentioning, trying to teach me how to pronounce his name, but once again, this is a very unique or interesting one because if it wasn't for the patch, a lot of these ratings would drop down a tier or so. But the Snow Guard buff, the Snow Guard buff has really changed things. Snow Guard is very playable right now. I would say one of the best low-key tools. And generally, this card is really powerful even without Loki. So something you want to keep in mind is you play Snow Guard, you get a 1/2, and then it gives you 2/2/3s, right? So let's say you play all 3 of those cards. You're getting, what are you getting? You're getting a 5/8 with location disruption. Do you know what card that is, baby? It's Legion. They just made Legion again. But it's a better Legion because it's more flexible. You can play it 1, 2, and 3, or wherever it fits your curve. So arguably they created a stronger Legion and then nerf Legion, right? Right before. So they should know this card was going to be very strong. And it has even more synergies, right? Like, anyway, Snow Guard is very good. Let's not go into it. Snow Guard is very good and really pushes this Alioth tier up quite a bit. So if you're missing all 3 cards, I would once again also say this is the one of the spotlights that you really want to push for if you're missing all 3. Just Alioth is really, I think, playable. It's going to be good in lockdown, and other decks might pass it, and it's also just a generic good ramp card as well. So I do think there's going to be a lot of decks that can utilize Alioth in a reasonable way that it makes sense to have in your collection. And Snow Guard's just been a very dominating force right now, and I think a force that will continue to be pretty good even past like the Loki meta that we currently have and things like that. So definitely think this is a very good spotlight to put your resources in. Hit Monkey is maybe the loser of this spotlight right now. Not really something I would focus on. That's why you can see if you have Alioth and Hit Monkey by itself, it's just a B tier. It's really just being carried by Alioth. The colors are wrong here. This bottom one that's D tier level coloring, but B tier level strength. Anyways, but yeah, just keep that in mind that Hit Monkey maybe not that relevant right now. It's still a decent card, but a lot of decks have other alternatives for Hit Monkey, especially with the nerf. It really hasn't recovered, I would say. It's still decent. People are playing Hit Monkey and Loki decks just because Loki, in my opinion, is kind of like bounce, and you can flood on the last turn, and Hit Monkey works with that. So people have been trying that. So it does work, but generally you don't need it. So overall, still a really good spotlight, but you're really focusing on Alioth and Snow Guard. Next up, we have Ravonna, the Ravonna Spotlight. And I would say this is by far the loser. I don't have a lot of good things to say for her spotlight in particular. First thing that's a big negative is you have 2 Series 4 cards in here. So Ravonna and Zabu are both Series 4. So instead of the 1500 base that you're usually getting with a spotlight, this one's a 1200 base. So generally not good in terms of token value. And then both of these cards get destroyed by Mobius. So you would generally go for this because of Ravonna and Zabu, but you basically have a week to play them. You play them for a week, and then Mobius comes out, everyone's playing Mobius, and bam, your cards are useless. So that kind of function really just makes this a really bad spotlight to invest your resources on. If you really push for this, you might feel okay for it for about a week, but after that week is up, then like you're not gonna play this card for a while, right? You're gonna have to deal with the Mobius meta that emerges, and then maybe after a couple of weeks it slows down a bit, and then you can start playing this again. And that's just not a great use of resources, I would say. You'd rather just have something that you can get and play and feel good about for a while, and this doesn't really have that effect, as well as it being a cheaper spotlight to get overall. So if you are missing all 3 cards, Zabu, Jean Grey, and Ravonna, then like it's worth considering. Considerate. It's worth considering. Anyways, but generally, I wouldn't really go for it. Generally, it's just not a good spotlight. So this one is probably the loser of the set. Something I wouldn't really go for. But overall, let's move on to the next one. So the last one we do have is Mobius. So Mobius, I would say once again, pretty great card. This I do think is a card that's going to immediately change up the meta. Kind of similar to Loki, where Loki comes out, immediately changes the meta. I think Mobius is also going to have that type of effect where it comes out, immediately changes the meta. It's going to lock down so many decks, and just you're going to have to consider deck building differently with this in the game. So definitely think it's something you want to spend your resources on. Now, there's kind of an issue with this spotlight in particular, in that almost no one's going to have this first tier, these first two tiers, where you're missing High Evolutionary. High Evolutionary is a card that almost everyone got. And also, this is a secondary repeat of High Evolutionary. So if you needed High Evolutionary, there's a good chance you got it in the previous spotlight. So there's a very, very large chance most people are going to be in the bottom two where they already have High Evolutionary. And now if you already have that, now you're stuck with this Kang situation or Mobius situation, which I would say is not worth a spotlight generally. So I have this like asterisk here where I'd say if you can get this with tokens, if you can, so Mobius is a 3,000 token card. If you can get Mobius with tokens, get it with tokens. Don't use your spotlights on it, because I just think there are much better spotlight choices here this month. And using your spotlights to get Kang right now doesn't really make sense. Kang has kind of taken the spot of what Snowguard would have been. I would say it's a card that isn't unplayable, but isn't worth playing. You know, like you can put in your deck and maybe it'll help you, but generally it's not a card that you feel that good about playing. A lot of times, you know, if you're gonna lose a game, you're gonna lose a game. Like, you know, Kang's not saving you. You know, you're still gonna lose. So it's not really a card I would super prioritize in terms of the spotlight system. So because of that, I would just recommend getting Mobius with 3,000 tokens. I just think that's way better. So if you are in a situation where you don't have High Evolutionary, then this becomes a much better spotlight to go for, since you're going to get Mobius, which is a great card, a card you should be getting like as a baseline, but then you also get High Evolutionary on top. So that's pretty good. Another thing I do want to mention at this point is that there is a bundle. There is a Mobius bundle coming out on October the 5th for 7,500 gold that will give you Mobius and an Enchantress, but whatever, and then 10,000 credits. So I would say if you, so how I'm looking at this Mobius variant is I'm giving it the value, if you don't have Mobius, of 2,000 tokens. The reason being is that there's going to be a point where randomly you get Mobius in the random series 4 or series 5s, but instead of getting 1,000 tokens, you're going to get Mobius, the base variant of Mobius, right? So normally that's 3,000 tokens, right? Getting a new card, but you, instead of the new card, you would be getting 1,000 tokens instead. So the new card value, I'm just deducting. Eventually you're going to get that. So it ends up being a 2,000, like it's like a 3,000 token loan, but you're getting the 1,000 back, right? So 2,000 essentially. So if you put 2,000 here, this becomes a pretty good bundle. That's the point is, this is a good bundle if you don't have Mobius. That's my point. And generally that's a good idea, except you're gonna have to wait 2 weeks, right? So Mobius comes 2 weeks earlier, so you're going to have to play the metagame without Mobius for 2 weeks, and then you're also going to have to spend 7,500 gold. So this is an available option, and value-wise, if you give Mobius 2,000 tokens, this is a decent bundle. However, I would much rather you get it early, so I'd much rather you get it through spotlights or tokens. But for people that just have this much gold laying around and don't have gold, don't have tokens, have gold, don't have spotlights, yeah, you could do this. I'm just saying I'd recommend you get it through spotlights or tokens, but it is available for you. So just keep it in mind. Good Spotlight if you're missing high evolutionary. Most people are not. That's why this Spotlight kind of isn't that good for most people, right? It's B tier, right? Not bad, but like I wouldn't open 4 Spotlights just to get a 3,000 token card, right? Just use your tokens and get this. So that's my thoughts on this one. So overall, those are the 4, and then we do have a nice little graphic here for next month and the month after, right? So the data mines this month was very generous, right? So I'm pretty sure secondary gets to choose how generous they can be with how much information they're giving people that are super active in the game and care about this information, and they decided to be generous this month. So they gave us this month, next month, and the month after. So we have a lot of time. So this is something where I might be able to do these spotlights tier lists a little bit earlier than normal since I have the information already. But this is just a nice little graphic if you want to look through and see what's coming. It might be a little bit small, and I'm not sending a link. I'm not doing the extra work. But we do have next season caches, which is Thanos, X-23, and Echo. So it's kind of interesting because Thanos got nerfed, but those are something interesting. X-23 is played now. I would say pretty staple in Destroy. If you're gonna play Destroy, X-23 is really good option for that. So definitely some things to talk about for next season's caches, but we're gonna save that for another video. This one is just talk about this season. Hope it makes sense. Hope you guys understand it. Ignore my word slip ups. But other than that, hope you guys have a good rest of your day. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Educated calling snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be